Alright, good day guys. So welcome to lesson 7 where we're going to cover square roots. So today let's just get right into it. The square of a number is the number multiplied by itself. Yeah, let's make sure we're on the right everything. So itself, right? So whenever we're talking about squares, and make sure we're distinguishing squares and square roots. They go together, but one's like a positive, one's like a negative. They're kind of the opposites of one another, okay? So perfect squares can be expressed as the product of two equal rational numbers. So that's where two numbers are the exact same. And then non-perfect squares are a rational number that cannot be expressed as the product of two equal rational numbers, okay? So we're going to look at all these perfect squares, and then we'll talk a little bit about non-perfect squares. We're mostly going to be focusing on perfect squares because they're nice, tidy numbers, and we like to keep it, reasonable for you guys. So remembering that a square is a number multiplied by itself, so 1 times 1 is 1. 2 times, I'm going to make this a little bit easier for you guys to see. I'm going to put it in blue. Ooh, fancy. All right, so 1. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 3 is 9. And we go like this all the way up to 20. You guys won't have to memorize everything up to 20, but I would say for sure up to 12 you should be able to recite off the top of your head, and even a few we might have to do a little practice. Again, you'll have your calculator available to you, so you won't always have to memorize things. But just like everything in math, the more you can do in your head, the quicker the problems will go. And if every time you're doing this square of 12, you have to go into your calculator, just time away from Netflix at home in the evening, when you're watching these videos, right? So let's keep going. So 4 times 4 is 16. 5 times 5 is 25. And we keep going down the line. Okay. 1, 100. Okay. Then we go 121, 169. And this is where I stop to remember them off the top of my head. 225. 256. 289. 324. 361. And 4. Awesome. Okay. So this table is going to be helpful just to go back, refresh, and remember what it is. If you're ever really bored and you want to have some fun, math fun, depending what you like to do, you can always plot this, and it makes kind of a neat graph how it goes. So you could have fun with that if you ever wanted. Not a requirement for class. Okay. So first things first, we're going to look at how to do fractions. Okay, so how do we find the square of a fraction, right? Because it's asking calculate the number whose square root is this number. So if this is the root, what is the square? Okay, so basically we're going to take all of this, right, and we're going to put it squared, just so we can remember what we are doing. Now, if you take this number, it's basically any number times itself, right? So the square of 3/8 is going to be 3/8 times. This little dot is another way of writing multiply, especially when we get into the algebraic stuff where we have the x's and the y's and the a's and the b's. This dot makes it less confusing, instead of an x times x and then you got a bunch of stuff going on, right? Or x times y, okay? So 3/8 times 3/8. Now we remember how to multiply our fractions, right? So we simply just multiply across. So 3 times 3 is, hey, we even had that up there if we won't need it, 9. And then 8 times 8 is 64, okay? And that would be our main solution, okay? And we can always take that, see if it can be simplified. In this case, it cannot. And so we're good to go. Okay, let's do this for the next one. So 5 quarters squared will equal 5/4 times 5/4. So we end up with 25/16. Okay, this one can be simplified in the sense of we can make it not an improper fraction, so we could always go to 16 goes in 25 once, and then we end up with 9/16 remaining. Okay, and that's as far as we get. Okay, so let's look at the next example. Okay, so each fraction a perfect square? If so, find its square root. Okay, so now we're kind of going in the opposite direction where we're trying to find what number times itself would equal these numbers. Okay, this is where you'll definitely want to use your calculator. Again, if they're nice, neat numbers, you can probably figure out what their square root is, just kind of working in reverse. But when we start getting to more complicated numbers, you'll definitely want to be using your calculator. Okay, so what we're going to do here is we're going to take these numbers and we're going to put them under a square root sign, so we know what we're doing. Okay, so again, same thing here. We can just simplify it even further. So the square root of 16 divided by the square root of 25. So the square root of 16, again, if you find the little button in your calculator, or if you know 4 times 4 equals 16, so then the square root would be 4. Underneath here, 5 times 5 equals 25, so that would be the square root. Okay, so square root is always the number times itself that would equal this one. Okay, same thing over here. Okay, so we start 9/49 is the same as the square root of 9 divided by the square root of 49. Okay, we know that 3 times 3 equals 9, so 3, and 7 times 7 equals 49, so this answer would be 7. Okay, all right, hope this is working out for you guys. If you don't, again, please ask some questions. I'm always here to help. That's why I'm here, actually. Okay, but first make sure you've watched a video before you ask questions. Okay. All right, so next one here, find the value of each square root. Okay, so this is where things get potentially a little bit messier, but again, we have some nice numbers to start. We'll see for C that it's not quite as tidy. Okay, so here, what is the square root of each of these numbers? Well, the square root of 9/4 is the same thing as square root of 9, divided by the square root of 4. Okay, 3 times 3 equals 9, so 3. And square root of 2 is, or sorry, square root of 4 is 2. I gave away the answer, right? And we can simplify this to 1 and 1/2. Okay, same thing over here. This is the same thing as square root of 16. And if you guys want to skip this step once you get comfortable with things, I'm all right with that. Just thought we'd start it so it's a little bit easier. Okay, 4 times 4 equals 16, so that would be the first, and then 9 times 9 equals 81, so 9. All right. Okay, so this is where things get a little bit trickier, and we need to try and see what we can do. Okay, so first things first, we have the square root of 8/18. Okay, 8 isn't a perfect square. We can't really square root it nice and tiny. Neither can we do that with 18. But what we can do, okay, is 8/18 can be simplified to 4/9. Okay, these are equivalent fractions, right? 8 divided by 2 equals 4. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Okay, wow, these are perfect squares that we know. Okay, so sometimes it's just a matter of simplifying to a number that you can do as long as you're dividing the top and bottom by the same number, right, or the multiplying them by the same number. Okay, so now we can take this, right, and we can say that the square root of 8/18 is equal to the square root of 4/9. Okay, and then this can be simplified to 2/3. And that's as easy as it gets for us. Okay, or simplified. I shouldn't say easy, because not everything has to be easy. Okay, so you can use a calculator to find out if a decimal is a perfect square. Okay? So the square root of a perfect square is either a terminating, so So a decimal that doesn't go on forever, or a repeating number. Okay, and that's a number that will continue on forever, but it would be an example of 3.33 squared, right? So this 3 continues forever. The pattern doesn't change, like what numbers will follow. So it has to be one of those two combinations to be a perfect square with a decimal. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples. Is each decimal a perfect square? How do we know? Well, let's have a look and figure it out. So first thing, and probably the easiest way to do it, I think, pretend there's no decimal. Okay, so we're just going to rewrite this number as 169. Using our table or our calculator, right, we can see that 169 is a perfect square. So then this decimal can be 2. So what is the square root of 169? Well, that is equal to 13. So if we put the decimal back in, 1.69, right, we can determine that our square is 1.3, okay? One number, decimal, one number, decimal. Continue on, okay? Awesome. We could also check something else if we want, but we're gonna go with it. So is it a perfect square? Yes. Yes, it is. Okay, now this next one, let's have a look here. So if we did the square root of 35, is 35 a square root? No, right? If we go and punch it into our calculator, we end up with 1.87. It doesn't continue, it kind of goes on, that's just us rounding it off. So in this case, no, it is not. All right, guys, that's all I have for you today. So I hope you guys have a good day, and we're going to come back for lesson 8 next time. Have a good day.